Hello, hello, hello. Let me stop this music here for a sec. This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. Uh, Relatively muggy day in, I guess, low 70s. Beautiful day out there, a little cloudy, but we're doing all right down here. And a lot of you guys are doing all right, it looks like. Um, there's no need to talk about what's going on right now. You heard me talk about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and we're probably going to talk about it a little more. Let's have a little escapism. But as a bartender, I don't know if I call myself a keen observer of the human condition. I am an observer, though. I'm there. And, when people come in, I always try to, I experience them. I try to get the feel from them. Some people I get the vibe that they're visiting and they let you know. They let you know that that's happening. So when they're tourists, I play the tour guide for them, and when they could be locals. We get people that come in from Key West, and they're making their way back. They do this long trip where they got to do a bunch of stuff on the mainland. Sometimes there's we had this discussion about medical care in the Keys. Unless you're a lot of these doctors down here don't accept new patients. Not all the health plans that people have do they, accept them as patients too, and or accept their plans. So they drive back and do all sorts of things, shopping and things you can't get. Trips from the airport, people traveling to their vacation homes. But and whether it's a guy and a man and a woman, or two guys, on business, two women on business, two friends, two people that might not be friends, or maybe more than friends. Uh, I could go through all the minutia of what's out there, but it's funny that some people seem to really get into, especially when it comes to with the tourists, you see people that are coming in and you look like their relationship. You're trying to rate the relationship. Did they have a bad trip? How did the trip affect their relationship between each other? How are they talking to each other? Are they nice? Or if they had there's all different types of people. And we have people that come in and they've had to. I mean, we've all. If you travel often enough, you've experienced missed flights, late flights, canceled flights, all different things. Airports being closed and due to weather, and you have people that sometimes they come in and they say we've been traveling since this, it could be 8 o'clock at night, 8:30 at night. And they said we've been up, traveling since 4 in the morning, getting up and going to the airport and things like that. And it was a constant pain in the ass. And some people laugh about it. Other people, you can see it's strained. It put a strain on their relationship. Look like they made it down here, and you think, "Holy shit!" I just came back from work after being out for almost 2 weeks because of that operation. But I've had some people come in, and you can see they had a tough time coming in. They looked tired. They were from Wisconsin, and they seemed kind of done with the traveling thing, and they just wanted to have a drink and they wanted to sleep. And they said, "We're going to sleep here in Key Largo, not here in the restaurant, but we're going to go across the street. There's a restaurant across the street from the a hotel, the Hampton Inn, and we're going to go there. We're going to eat, have a couple drinks here." And sometimes when they unwind, and they did this last night, the couple from Wisconsin, they decided to just relax and hang out for a bit. And you can see they were going to have a good time. They were just, something. But other people, one person decided this was their trip, but the other person really didn't want to do it. I've had that where you've seen the woman's just like, I really don't give a shit about this trip. I don't know why you took me there. And you wonder if it's the last leg or is there something else going on. But I realize at the bar, it is the worst place in the world a lot of times. Some people like to work out their relationships while they're out having drinks. I'm not going to say some people haven't worked it out, but I'm like to say it may not be a good idea to do that in such a public showcase. And if you're having problems, maybe now's not the time to really go out. Maybe you need to have a little heart to heart at home, or wherever, some place a little more private. Sit in the car. Some you go face to face. But I don't know, in a somewhat public atmosphere, and um, I've seen it often enough where you see people talking and you see they're working on their relationships. They're all different types of people. Sometimes you have the new relationships, and the new relationships, if they go to a four top table that's made for four people, or they'll sit on one side of the table together, and which is nice, which is really nice. And then you have people that sit at a small table and they just sit across from each other, and that's nice too. And then you have people that just sit down next to people and start talking to them, and they kind of ignore their partner, whoever they're with, or talk to someone else, and they say, "Oh, this is my wife," blah 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 blah, and they'll just start talking. But the strain, you don't get a lot of leeway in a restaurant on how to work things out. A lot of times you have people chiming in too. Do you really need an audience for that? I've had some of my, at least one memorable one. I was out with a former girlfriend and another couple, and we were not getting along. We were not getting along at all. And I was in the depths of my drinking, my alcoholism, and I would just go and sit down and drink. I'd have a bourbon on the rocks, maybe 3, maybe 4, and my decision-making abilities would decline drastically after that second bourbon. Whenever I did that, I never really understood. I never understood or was aware that, hey, this was a pattern. It wasn't a really good thing to do. If your relationship is not healthy, throwing a little booze in there for certain people, and if the booze is one of the aggravating items in the relationship, it certainly doesn't enhance it. And here I am, Sam. I don't know if a business owner would like to hear that from me. Say, hey, listen, if you're having a problem, if you're having a problem with your relationship, don't tell them not to come out over here. I said, well, really, do you really want that kind of tension? You could feel it. It's uncomfortable. You see people come in, they're very unhappy. I've been with a bunch of different women, and sometimes they were happy about going out, sometimes they weren't happy going out. And it probably wasn't necessarily just about going out. It was necessarily about the condition I was in. I showed up a couple hours. I was going to date this girl. There was a bartender. I wasn't a bartender at the time. I was working in sales for a circuit board company. And I showed up a couple hours early, and I got drunk. And then she decided that, hey, I don't think it was a good idea that we go out. And I'm thinking that was one of the smartest decisions I've seen anybody ever make. Unfortunately, it was it was a beautiful blonde, man. She was a nice looking one. It was years ago. I guess I was in my late 20s at the time. And that was a wise decision by that girl. Now, if I don't think I'd ever. knowing now, no, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have done that. But then again, what what use is delaying the inevitable? The best thing in the world was probably me showing up that, so we didn't have to go through all that rigmarole. Rigmarole. How do you say that word? God damn it! You know, the whole step-by-step process of building a relationship, then seeing it fall apart, or not see it build a relationship. In my late 20s, oh my God, early or very early 30s, I would definitely sabotage the relationships by drinking too much on a regular basis. And I'd be there to get the brass ring. I went on a lot of first or second dates with girls, and then they just see it and they say, well, every time I see you, you have a drink in your hand, and not just one, not two, not three. So I was fortunate. I guess maybe people say, you know, Jim, it's probably best you did that, because then if you had those girls hanging out with them for a while and stuff like that, and you get into a relationship, and then you're, you know, what's the use being in a relationship? And I didn't consider myself an abusive alcoholic. Oh, that's my wife. I am going to pause this right now. I'm going to come right back. But we're going to talk about me being or not being an abusive. And we're back. We were talking about whether or not I was an abusive alcoholic. But showing up and, you know, at someone's place of work intoxicated, or going out to dinner intoxicated, just, geez, that just didn't work for me. And that was a specific problem, alcoholism. But I was suggesting that perhaps drinking and discussing relationship problems is not a good idea. You know, whatever you resolve is you're not going to remember, and then the other person's may or may not be drinking at that time, and they may decide that if you can't, you know, they may say, well, Jesus, look at this person's drinking like a trooper. And I see people out celebrating, having a good time, and they're getting along great, and then one person decides that, especially when it just say alcohol. You don't see them arguing about food that much. Every so often you do have a couple and go, order your own goddamn food. You know, you want to share. And I've seen that a couple of times when people say, oh, we're going to split this. And and the guy says, I'm getting myself a whole meal. If you want one, get one yourself. Well, I was going to get this, and we can split that, you know. And, you know, you can build a meal by eating a couple appetizers and stuff like that. And that makes someone happy that they want to split a meal. They don't want a whole dinner. Some people have a problem with that. It's about accommodating people's sensibilities, right? So you going out on a date, and someone says, well, I don't like eating that much. Well, we can just have appetizers. You can have a salad. If you don't want we can get a nice dinner. We can split it. You know, if they're a big eater, you say, hey, listen, get your meal, do whatever. Sharing. Some people, when they get into sharing, that's an intimacy part of a relationship. If you reject someone's, and it's usually, I'm not trying to be stereotypical or stuff like that, but it's usually women. They like to share. And you should be able to show if you're a guy, you should be able to show that you can share and you're good about it and you're agreeable, but you're not a rollover, you know? In the old days, geez, you'd see this in the movies from the 50s and the 60s, and guys would order for women. And I guess that was the thing, but what a goddamn bullshit. If someone, you know, actually, at certain times in my life, I really was a glutton. I would eat almost anything. So if I went to the right restaurant and say, hey, listen, why don't you order for me? That would be kind of exciting. Or when someone picks up something on the way home for you. But what I'm saying is about sharing and things like that. It's a relationship. Using the restaurant and bar as a way to cement the relationship. If you both have the same drinking habits, then that very well could work. And I do see older couples that come in. They come in for happy hour and they sit down and they drink for a couple hours, talk to their friends. They have a good time with each other and stuff like that. And then other people, they like to, both people like to have a drink or two. But I know one particular couple that comes in, and as soon as he drinks a certain liquor, sometimes she goes, no, 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 none of that. Have a beer, have a beer. God, you're already when a couple comes in and one person wants something, and their partner says to him, I don't think that's a good idea, and they do it in public. It's like a yeah, it's just some people view it as overbearing or shrewish behavior. Sounds like I had a couple drinks. So we have you have all those things. They say, well, maybe you shouldn't have that drink. And once you have that, sometimes people they get in the back of their head, they're offended. They say, what are you saying? I can't drink? I'm an adult. I can drink. I've earned it. I've had a hard day. I need to have a drink or whatever, stuff like that. Instead, it sounds like I'm not a bartender, stuff like that. But no, going out and meeting for a couple drinks is great. And it does display when you're, pardon me, when you're just engaging the person in conversation. You want to show them how interactive you are with other people, how you're viewed by other people. If you want to really get to know them, see them through other people's eyes, how they're greeted by it when they come in. If you come into a bar and you go, oh my God, this person's coming in. The bartender goes, oh Jesus, they're acting. Go, hey, listen, yeah. If he said something about, listen, we don't want any trouble, then you should worry. If I was a girl, you should worry about the guy. If everyone is on edge around him, and then they start moving away. So that's a hint. Now when they all come, and then you got to see the kind of people that are drawn to them. And that's a little deeper. That's like Jedi level relationship. Where it depends on where you go. You want to be in a place where people view you kindly or respectfully, hold you into some sense of esteem. If you're dating someone who's religious and you say, I'm an avid churchgoer, and you go up, you say, oh, let's go to church together, and let's say you go to the Catholic Church down here, St. Justin's, and Father Hill's there. That's our pastor here, who has some very interesting sermons that we try to figure out every time he says it. It's like he takes you to some really interesting, long sermons, and in the end, you're completely left in the wilderness. But I digress. I'm just saying you're going someplace, and you say you go there often, and you interact, and you say, let's say, for instance, that you're a regular churchgoer, you go to this church, and you go there, and the priest doesn't recognize you when he's, when you're filing out. When you go up there and he says, hey, how are you? Blah, 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 good to see you again. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, who's this person? Yeah. You go, oh, I guess a lot of people don't do that anymore. God, that would be crazy. I don't ever remember going out, when I met a woman, just say, let's go to church together. That would be some fun, boring ass beginning of a date for me. And then unless it's some kind of good church, you're not getting any that day. If church is on the menu, listen, I'm taking on two different things. I mentioned a bar, now I'm at church. If church is on the menu, there's a really good chance you probably won't get anything that day. Not for a while, unless you put a ring on that finger. You're dating one of the people that are a promise keeper. But I guess I've spent a lot of time on this. All I'm saying right now is, if you're working out relationship problems, don't do it. And I've seen it. I've just had stories of people saying, they tell me, and everyone sees it. Everyone sees it. I wasn't there. I had a friend come in last night, and I knew they had problems the week before because someone felt it important enough to tell me. He said, oh, your friend that was here, they they weren't getting along with their significant other, and they walked out on their check and all this stuff. And I go, um, oh, that sucks, man. That sucks when that happens there. But it seems to happen. I mean, I walked out. I walked out of a restaurant. Did I pay? Oh no, I think I paid the bill. I walked. I walked like 4 miles home. 4 miles because I was so pissed off. And that was definitely the end of a 1 year long relationship. It's just an awkward, and there's no nuances to it. There's no subtleties when you're out. Trying to explain those things just doesn't seem to work. And if you attempt to resolve it, invest a little alone time. And the other person doesn't want alone time. If they want to go now, if they insist on going to the restaurant, a lot of times it's because you want to be in a public place for the breakup. So there's very little, there's some social restriction to how extreme someone's reaction is. So if someone's insistent that they go to your local, watering hole, it's usually someplace. I don't know if I would go to one of my regular places. I would go to the other person's regular place. Well, if you want people on your side, you should go to your place, right? So, but if you want to try to mend anything, you definitely want to look out for stuff like that. We'll move on to lighter things. Coming to relationships, there's people, and I should never watch YouTube. I did a research because I wanted to see the commercial to get it because it's been going out. The commercial's been out for years, Nugenics. And I just saw a YouTube clip by Bill Burr, and he goes off for like 2 minutes on this Nugenics commercial. And I did it a year ago or something like that. I mentioned that this guy's walking in to a gym, let's say, and there's Frank Thomas working out or finishing working out, and there's a guy with a woman, and the woman goes and says, "Oh, look at that! There's a big hurt." You should call him the big hunk, And I'm like, Bill Burr's acting like he's got slightly edgy, and he's kind of sometimes his stuff gets to be a little, a little. I guess, but that's about a comedian. That's about the thing about being a comedian. You want to be able to take a normal circumstances. And what's normal about that? You go and see someone famous, an ex-baseball player, working out, and say, "Oh, look, he lost weight. You look like you could play again." And he doesn't look like he could play again, but he looks older. But I mean, he looks big, and he must have been really heavy at one time because he's still kind of a stocky individual, kind of, not V cut, and and you feel comfortable to go and say, "Hey, look at you, you're still looking good," and stuff like that. And he offers what I do. Oh, listen, I take Nugenics and stuff like that he doesn't go and say, "Listen, we lose our after 40, there's a drastic drop in testosterone, free radical testosterone. So we have to get these in order to make sure we can, your body's still burning calories and we're not storing fat and we're building muscle, and that, guys lose muscle because they lose testosterone. And they also have a reduced sex drive, right? But he doesn't say that. He goes, "Oh, listen, yeah, we're working out better. I'm feeling more stronger, more vibrant," and stuff like that. And he hands them a bottle, which is, it's pretty nice, like $50 for one of those bottles. Yeah, I take that stuff. I mean, it happens to everyone. Your testosterone levels go down I'm 57 years old, so it's good not to go too crazy with that stuff, but it's good to have. It keeps you, it helps you, work out a little more, maintain your muscles. The more muscles you maintain, the easier it is for you to move around and more efficiently burn calories, and easier to work, and you have more energy. But the thing that really gets me is the guy's with him. Frank Thomas looking at the guy, and he goes, "Well, you're probably not giving it to her that much." What? Well, she'll like it too. After that, she'll like it too. Because you probably can't get an erection. I'm not calling you Mr. Erectile Dysfunction Poster Boy 2021. I'm not calling you Flacido Domingo, but or Mr. Softy. And he's making an assumption with a person who approached him, and could have very well, in the context, saying, "Hey, look at you, champ. You look great still." And again, the first thing he goes and says to you is, "Well, yeah, I guess you wish you looked the way I do. I guess your wife would like you to look, or your significant other you're with would like that, because obviously you don't look like you're taking care of her." And it's like a real flirtation going around. He says, "Well, listen, why don't you take this and here's, why don't you hand him some Cialis?" I go, "Here's some Cialis. Looks like you hand someone, do it right in front of me. You're going to need some of these, right? You're going to need some of these. It looks like you're not taking care of this woman. This woman definitely got overexcited about seeing Frank Thomas. So you must be not laying the pipe too well." And then she smiles like, "Oh yeah." And there's the latest commercial. The guy has, she'll like it too. And there's a woman next to him, but there's a woman behind him too. On the newest commercial, and so it's suggesting, he goes, "Well, you may have just walked into a three-way. Here's your eugenics." Now, let me tell you, eugenics helps. If you're well rested, you can almost do anything. Yes, when you get older, you're not one of those. You're not getting up to speak most times, but sometimes you could. I mean, you're not getting up and you don't have a raging heart on all the time. Now you can. I don't know. I think it automatically, all these commercials think with these commercials for erectile dysfunction and eugenics and stuff like that. Everyone must think that someone who's over 45 is incapable of maintaining an erection or getting an erection. But that is just not the case. And sometimes, and we discussed this before, that some people just need help because it's just guys just need a little help because there's a refractory period in between. And then when it gets in your head that something isn't working, sometimes it adds to that, right? I mean, there's nothing. When I was a younger man, it happened. It happened every so often. Rarely happened for any new relationship. The scariest thing in a new relationship is that you would climax too quick. You come too quick. Just like Jim and the other Jim in American Pie. But then again, if that girl was climbing on top of me when I was 17, 18 years old, that's exactly what would happen to me. If I forget the girl's name and stuff like that, but whoever at that time, and my wife thinks she's not so attractive, but at that time, Nadia is her name in American Pie. At that time, she was very hot. Very hot. And at 17, 18, yeah. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I would need two times? Yes. Easy. I mean, and then with that, it should be like, oh, well, it's going to happen. It's just like saying, if you have dynamite, let's compare it to dynamite, right? If you're not aware of the length of the fuse and how quickly it burns, you're going to give yourself a little extra leeway with that wick, because you don't want to light a stick of dynamite, give yourself 6 inches of wick, and just have it go right through it, boom. You want to have, you need time. You say, oh shit, this stuff is burning quick. That's the way they used to do it all the time. And, you see them in those railroad movies. The guys that build the railroads, and they send the Irish or the Chinese guys into the tunnel to put the dynamite in. And, they're always, they're lighting it up and they're going. I mean, I never understood where they just light up one wick and it goes out, and they got to send someone in. He goes, well, how long do we have to wait now to see if it didn't go off? We better go in. It's like they always, you always hear stories that guys used to die because they go in and check dynamite, that the wick started burning real slow, and then it picked up again. But that's what I'm saying. It's unexpected. You don't know how long this is going to last. But the nice thing about when you're young is once you do that, the next time around, the next time you can get erect and do that again much quicker. When you're really young. But when you get older, it's like 20, maybe I'm kidding myself, 40 minutes in between. But if you have a little help, something that centralizes the flow of the blood, yeah, you're good to go. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it is. Younger guys have a better time doing it. It doesn't make them more of a man. They may not be able to balance their checkbooks. I mean, who balances a checkbook? Most of it's done electronically now. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that younger guys can't do. Right? And older guys can do. It's just some skills they have. They don't know necessarily how to romance somebody. Now, it's creepy. Down here, we did do the other shows when we're talking. I'm not talking about a guy who's 57 romancing someone who's in their 20s, though it does happen. And I have seen that out there. Seen some older men with younger women. And that would be, that would necessarily be when you're having someone compare they have an expectation, a physical expectation and performance of a young man and an older man. It's almost similar to expecting a guy that's 18 years old know how to refinance a house. Right? Or set up an IRA. They just don't know how to do it. You wouldn't ask, you don't go to a 20-year-old girl for advice on how to raise your children. Right? And women have it better with that because they hit their peak in there, and I understand that. And that's you know what? I give it to them for that. I'll give the women that. When I say I'll give it to them, it's not up to me to give it to them. What I'm saying is they've been treated horribly. A lot of these women, because guys would just naturally forsake. They ignore women when they get to be middle-aged. What's that all about? They don't ignore guys. Guys expect to be. Look at some of the attention that some wealthy fat guys get. One in particular is on my mind that dated younger women all the time and would leave his wife for younger women and stuff like that. I mean, it's almost like, I guess, more like Queen Catherine of Prussia, one of those big monarchs who was insatiable with men and stuff like that. Well, because she's a queen. He says, well, I don't give a shit. Bring them over here and stuff like that. Bring the young men over here. But that rarely happens. They get dumped. They're all these guys, and once they ask women to bear their children and stuff like that, raise them, take care of the houses, their households, and then screw around with their their girlfriend. And women have to, and women are hitting their peak in their 30s, and their husbands are beginning to ignore them. They, go through it. I mentioned this a couple times that childbirth plays hell on a woman's physiology. So, from the woman's point of view, when you see that commercial, Nugenics, I'm going back to the commercial. Yeah, I understand that, man. It's a good thing you give your guy Nugenics to keep, lose weight, tighten up that body, be there for your woman or your partner. I'm sorry, that was very one thing, because it could be a guy with a guy, right? Say, hey, listen, maybe the other could be an older guy with a younger guy, and you say, hey, listen, maybe you could do this. It'll help you. Help you lose weight, maintain your whatever. Your partner, yeah, that's a nice thing. She'll like it too. Do this for yourself. But in the long run, Frank Thomas, if the woman's with you while this is the sad part of that discussion, is the woman's with you and you're needed to be approached by Frank Thomas, or after you approach Frank Thomas, he reapproaches you, hands you Nugenics, saying you need this to take care of that woman you're with you, and that helps you. If you're that kind of shallow relationship and stuff like that, where that was the big deal and you need to go up to Frank Thomas and approach him about it, chances are, if it helped you so much, you probably would not be going after the woman you're with anymore. You'd be looking around the gym, right? So, that's the thing about people. You got to watch. The one thing you got to watch about people that get in shape late in life. If you got a couple, that's a real big disparity. You have, when couples do that, you have a woman and she starts going to yoga and working out and stuff like that, and a guy sitting on the couch eating a bowl of spaghetti, belching and burping, and she comes in and she was out at the gym and see all these hot guys and stuff like that, and she's taking care of herself and this guy isn't, or vice versa. Or let's say, you could be changing your habits. You're changing the way you eat, changing the way you drink. That happens too. Someone stops drinking, another person's still drinking, they go out, they have their separate lives, right? And then they start having real separate lives. I see that a lot. And, when someone drastically changes their lifestyle, starts taking Nugenics or going to yoga and doing Noom and all this stuff and eating a paleo diet, and then you're sitting there doing the same thing. Think about it. There's something that's instigating that person. Now, they may want to feel good about themselves, or they may want to make themselves more presentable for a new pairing with someone. So, going to the bar, and this Nugenic things brings it back in a circle. Going to the bar to work out your relationship problems may not be the best idea. But that, on the flip side, I said, remember the caveat. I said my experiences. If both of you, that's what you do, is go to bars and hang out, and that's, I would suggest to be safe about it. Take a taxi or an Uber or whatever you do. Have a designated driver. That's what you do, and that's what your relationship works. That could work for you splendidly. Or it could be like the worst counseling advice you'd ever have. Go out and have a drink and do some shots. Go to happy hour and martini night, and then try to work out your relationship problems. Why don't you smoke a little crack or crystal meth? That may help too. I know. I just equated alcohol with crack and crystal meth. What I'm suggesting is all these things. Coffee does it for me. Come on. If you're a coffee drinker, if you're like a 2-3 cup coffee drinker, you got to notice the change in your demeanor after that third cup. or second cup. I'm not all loosey goosey when I'm caffeined up and I haven't worked out and I'm just. Ugh. I mean, some people could be. Some people they may need that to just move their system. But these are just observations, and as always pointed out last week on the internet, doing my social media, some guy says, "What do you know? You're just a bartender." This cheap psychology. Well, listen. Everyone comes up with their own psychology theory. There's Skinner, there's Freud, there's probably tons of fucking other things. And remember, they used to, for you more progressives, psychology has changed over the years, or at least the understanding of it. And remember, at one time, on the physician's desk, the DSM, which is the Bible for psychological disorders, they listed homosexuality as a disorder, not as a natural, normal relationship, natural lifestyle. So that changed. That's no longer in there. So whatever I'm thinking, and someday they may say, hey, listen, maybe it'd be a great idea to go out and have a couple of drinks. Well, we know that's not the case, and we'll call a spade, right? Okay, well, I want to say hello to one of my new friends. There is a blog and a travel site out there, and it's going to take a look at it here. But they stopped in to catch the other day. Lovely couple. I didn't get it. I guess I'll find out more. But it's called Life's Too Short Bus. And you can go to lifestoshortbus.com. It's a travel related site. And they are on Instagram and Facebook. And we'll probably have them on in future. Also, I'd like to say hi to my friend Natty May in Scotland. I had some problems with my audio with the Windows update, and I have one of my regulars come in to the bar, and he told me he had lost control of his microphone and his headset due to one of these updates. And he's a coder, a programmer. So maybe I'm not so lame as I think. I am pretty lame. But listen. That's not part of my shtick. I don't rejoice in my inability to not do things, and I do appreciate that our listeners. We had some huge boosts of listeners. Poland, oh my God, Poland, Hanoi, Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam. Yes, Hanoi. We had a bunch of downloads from Vietnam, but who knows? Could be Americans there or something. If you're trying, once again, remember, if these people in India, Switzerland, Germany, if you're using the show to understand the English language, you will be sadly mistaken. This is not the norms. My language skills are not classical. So be careful on the idioms I use. Maybe I may not be the model for trying to understand English. And I do appreciate my foreign listeners. Most of my listeners, I told you my split up is like, right now it's 40% or 30 to 40% are in the southeastern part of the United States, or let's say Florida, and mainly centered. The biggest chunk, let's say the biggest chunk, 30%, is in South Florida. And then I have another 40% spread out throughout the United States, right? And that leaves another 30%, and that's all around the world. That is amazing. I think it's amazing. Whether it's Belgium, France, Vietnam, I said, Poland, okay? Why someone in Poland would say it's important. Saying this crazy bartender in Key Largo used to, not that they know, they may think I'm a Florida man, which I did not. If I would have been the classic Florida man if I was still drinking. But I'd like to thank all the people that are listening. Please share this with your friends. Like us on Facebook. Share. If you could write a review, if you're a regular listener, if you could write a review on the big platforms, iTunes especially, Spotify, I'd really appreciate it. We're not just available on Spreaker, we're also available on, like I said, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everything, almost every other major platform except for Pandora, and I think Pandora's probably almost done. Right? Oh, I'm not. You know what? I'm not doing sour grapes and stuff like that. So I had, I guess, I have no idea how many listeners I have. I have a good idea of the distribution of listeners I have now because I have put out my RSS feed, the feed that sends it to so many platforms that I don't know how much of the demographic information I'm getting back. I'm probably only getting like 30% of it because some of it exists with my old media group. They're sending stuff out, and and there's other platforms I may not be getting to because it makes sense if you're on a platform that they don't tell you how many people listen because then they'd have to pay you the royalties on the commercials that they advertise on there, and they don't, right? Unless you have some kind of agreement with them. So, but I think right now, like the smaller ones, they don't really do anything, even if they started exploding, but they keep the numbers. They tendency to do so. I think right now, I think we're at about 5,000 listeners a month, which is pretty good. Eventually I'd like to get to, maybe 20,000. I think we could do it. I will endeavor not to bore you and try to give you my perspective as honestly as I can. Thank you for listening, and I will be back most likely tomorrow in the daytime, and I'll probably have a guest on Thursday. Take care. Goodbye. This is me signing out. Till next time.